Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to OAA Now here. I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger around the OAA, the host of Last Three Brain Cells, and the host of Queen Taormina's on Orion Neighborhood Television. I'd like to welcome those watching on the local voice on SoundCloud and those watching on Orion Neighborhood Television. We got two guests this week. We got one going to call in during the show, and also we got the voice of Dragon football, Coach Doug Corliss.
Sammy, this is one of the best days of the year. The pads went on today. You get that feeling that football's in the air, even though it's 90 degrees. So yeah, let's tee it up.
It's Christmas. It's Christmas and football season. That's how you approach it. We had OA Media Day this week on Friday at Rochester, and it was really interesting. We had 22 teams there. Of course, we had two future members coming in the winter in Waterford, Kettering, and Waterford, Mott. Coach CC, I want you to get your thoughts on both Waterford, Kettering, and Waterford, Mott as we head into the year.
You know what? There was a time that they said, we want out of the OAA. We want to go to the Kensington Lakes. We want to do this. And Mott's had some success. Kettering, maybe not so much. But you know what? The travel was killing them. Mm-hmm. And so the travel alone coming back into the OAA is going to make it worthwhile for them. And also we're going to balance out the divisions in the OAA.
And when you look at, of course, the balancing of the divisions, obviously, Waterford, Kettering, Waterford, Mott have one more year in the Lakes Valley Conference. I know we've looked at both these two teams from afar. Obviously, Kettering, I'm under Coach Brian Barnes, the second year. He was at Madison Heights Bishop Foley. The stats were not pretty at Waterford, Kettering last year. They had the worst defense in the Lakes Valley Conference, around 360 points, 40 points a game last year. So what's it going to take for Waterford, Kettering to get this turned around in your eyes?
It takes not only the commitment of the players, it takes a buy-in from day one. The first day that the coach stands in front of your team and said, I'm your coach, here's my vision for this plan, and they got to buy in. There can't be any renegades, especially on a new team and a new program, because it just destroys it before it ever has a chance to get off the ground. So those players have to buy in from day one.
And then Waterford Mott, they got a new coach in Traven Say taking over. Of course, Say was an assistant at Orchard Lake St. Mary's a year ago, winning a D2 state championship. So talk about the importance, and obviously Say knows a lot of those players at Mott, especially because he's had experience when they were freshmen.
Yep.
So talk about what Trajan Say has to deal with at Waterford Mott.
I think he'll have an easier time than the situation at Kennedy, simply because, Mott has had some success in the recent years, and like you say, he's got some familiarity with those players from their JV time. And he's been in Orchard Lake. It's not like he's been in exile somewhere. He knows about that program, so I think he's going to have an easier time. And especially coming into the OAA, he's been at St. Mary's. He's used to top flight competition.
Before we talk the Gold Division, let's break down the Lakes Valley a little bit. Obviously, Kettering and Mott last year. When you look at this conference, obviously it starts and ends with Walled Lake Western. Do you think Western is still the favorite again this year?
Yeah, with the horses they have in their stable, yeah, it's their division to lose.
And you look at Kettering, you look at Lakeland, Milford, obviously South Lions, Northern and Central going to have long years.
Well, I'm always partial to Walled Lake Central. I'm a Central alumni before it was Walled Lake Central, not to date myself. And so I'm always looking for them, but it seems like lately they are the younger brothers to Western. Western's built a great program, and the other two Walled Lake schools, has it diluted the talent pool that much? But they're just always been playing catch up to Northern the past few years.
To Western, you mean?
No, to Western, excuse me.
And when you look at a course, do you think Waterford Mott can challenge Walled Lake Western?
Will they be able to overcome Walled Lake Western? Probably not.
You never know. I mean, you never know. You really never know. See how it goes. All right. So our guest Tyler Kieft, he'll call in, and when he does, we'll get him into this conversation. So let's start off with the OAA. We're gonna start off with the Gold Division. We look at the Gold last year. Avondale won the division.
Yep.
They have a Walled Lake Western problem for the last 2 years. When you look at this division, and before we talk individual teams, let's look at this division from last year. Avondale won the Gold. Ferndale was second. Both Avondale and Ferndale made the playoffs. Yep. Berkeley had a transition year. Royal Oak, of course, they were up and down. They had a big win against Clawson last year. And then Pontiac, they had a good win to start up week 1, and then things went south for them. So when you look at this division early on, what are you seeing?
I see, look, it's Ferndale's year. Mm-hmm. It's Ferndale's division to lose. They've got the horses. They've got the experience. It's a playoff team from last year. They're going to build on that. Avondale, they're the dark horse. They got a new coach, and I heard you talking with him on your recording your podcast earlier. He's got the task of getting those players to buy into what he wants to do. And it's that way with any new coach. We talked Kettering and Mott. It's the same thing at Avondale. Buy in. And this is the time of year where you're going to find out if those guys are going to buy in or not, because you've had them through workouts in shells. Now the pads come on. Let's see what kind of team you're going to build. I want to talk about Pontiac for a second.
Yeah, go ahead. Pontiac's the first team we're breaking down.
Yeah, because what Pontiac has had this thing for a long time. They've got a world-class facility there, but they can't hold on to their athletes. Their prime athletes are going to St. Mary's. They're going to Notre Dame Prep. Pontiac has got to keep their athletes in their house, not let them go somewhere. How do you do it? Number one, you start building a program of respect between the coaches and the players, and the players and the coaches and the players amongst themselves.
But that's what Coach Jefferson's been trying to do over there.
Right. And he's not the first to try to do it. But it's all in the message. But more than anything else, these kids in Pontiac have been playing youth football since they were young guys, real young guys. And all of a sudden they come up through the ranks, and all of a sudden this guy goes off to Orchard Lake St. Mary. This guy's going somewhere else. They got to keep those guys in-house.
And when you look at, of course, this Pontiac team this year, they got some experience up front. Mm-hmm. They've got some questions at quarterback with Kanye Donaldson graduating. When you look at this Pontiac team and you look at the schedule they got to play, talk about what the challenges that Pontiac faces this upcoming season.
One of the things, did they ever reinstitute a JV program?
Yeah, they got a JV program.
They got a JV program. So they're getting those players some experience in the program with what they want to do. So for a few years, they didn't have a JV program. These kids were coming up, and boom, they're pushed right into varsity and didn't have a clue. And that's all part of the consistency. That's all part of getting the message across what you want to do, and having the players, once they trust the coaching staff, being able to carry it out.
How important is it for this program, for Pontiac, to have the varsity and the JVs practicing together at the same time? How important is that?
Well, if you haven't got the numbers, that's what you got to do.
And then
the best thing they can do is increase their numbers. We've heard story after story in other districts, other programs, where the head coach is roaming the halls of the school, grabbing a big kid and saying, "Why aren't you going out for football?" Mm-hmm. And some of those kids have got to listen and come out for football and learn the game and, be part of the team.
And, you look at, of course, you look at the struggles that Pontiac has had is, obviously, the results haven't been there. It's changing the culture there, and it's not an easy thing. The facilities help, but
Yep.
you got to go out there and do it.
And that wears on the players.
Mm-hmm.
When you go out and
Hold on, this is Tyler here. Hey, Tyler, how are you, man?
Doing all right, how are you, Sammy?
I'm good. We're talking Pontiac here. You got Coach Corliss here with you as well. So if you want to check in with Pontiac, also with Coach Corliss as well.
All right.
Mm-hmm. So, Coach Corliss, I'll let you continue your thought.
Yeah. If I can remember where that thought was. But no, if you haven't got the horses, you got to have the JV and the varsity scrimmage each other, because that's all you got. You haven't got the players to run a first-team offense and a first-team defense. So you got to bring them in where you can. A lot of players go two ways.
Mm-hmm.
And, that can either help you, or as the season wears on, that can hurt you. And by then, you're an injury away from disaster for the season.
Yeah. Tyler, you want to check in with Pontiac here, talking about them?
Yeah, and that's definitely going to be a problem if you have a depth issue on your squad, especially when you're a younger program that's on its way back, third year under Wendell Jefferson. And he remarked it in his packet for preseason info. He's got 7 starters coming back on the offensive side, but just 3 on the defensive side. And especially for a team that a year ago was struggling in all 3 phases of the game, that could be really problematic. There was 3-6 record last year, multiple games with teams putting up 40-plus points. Of course, one of those was a triple overtime game in week 2. Again, sorry, that was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago. You were thinking 2 years ago. This is last year.
Regardless, last year even worse. Last year, every game was a 30-piece or a 40-piece. Late in the season, when you saw some of the best of the best in the state, like the Harper Woodses of it all, 54-0 loss. King, a team that they took the triple overtime a year ago, lost by 4 touchdowns, 28-0. So when you have defensive lacking depth, that could be a really big problem. But like Doug said, you put the JV guys in there against the varsity guys, get them more reps, get them more experiences. That's what high school football is. Part of it's the competition, part of it's the fanfare of Friday night under the lights in your hometown. The other side of it is teaching these kids the game of football, and that's something that's certainly at the forefront of the Phoenix program right now.
And part of the thing, and I'm just looking at their overview. Question mark entering the season? Depth.
Yeah, that's big one.
Why is there a question about depth going in? Because they haven't got the numbers.
Mm-hmm. And that's the big question mark. A lot of people look at with Pontiac. Now look at Royal Oak. I mean, obviously, you look at this Ravens team. Last year, they finished 3-6. They had that big win against Clawson to close out the year 21-7. What's your early thoughts on Royal Oak? I'm going to start with Tyler here on this one.
Well, Royal Oak, I'm not as familiar with these teams. I don't see a lot of them out of the gold as opposed to out of the red. But this is another one of those teams that's been looking to find its footing in recent years. And much like Pontiac, depth is a bit of an issue for them. You're returning 4 starters on each side of the ball. That's going to be at least helpful. It's a little bit more even. You kind of know what you're working with those strengths and those weaknesses. But Coach Campbell put it into perspective too. He came into the season identifying it right out of the jump. One of the weaknesses, one of the things that he's worried about coming into the season is how effective his team will be in the trenches, and that's the kiss of death for a team. If you don't have a strong front 7 on the defensive side, that can be a problem for you. If you're front 5 on the offensive side, aren't giving you time for your quarterback to set up his progressions, or your running back a hole to get through, especially in the OAA, you're going to have a lot of trouble competing.
Looking at their overview, their leading returners, offense and defense, are the same 4 guys.
Yep, Liam Fleming. They do return the quarterback and Ben Alps. I mean, I know he wasn't on the program. He had a decent year. I watched a couple Royal Oak games on their Royal Oak School's YouTube page, and there were some times that definitely the line is a big question mark for Colin Campbell, and I think that is a good point there. I mean, like, if you want to change your culture, your program, and we know Royal Oak historically has not been very good. I mean, like, obviously when you look at the record and all that, but I think offensively, I think both sides of the ball, you got to look at Royal Oak is the system that they're doing working over there.
You and I were talking before this thing started, and I made the comment that give your quarterback 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
If that offensive line can hold up for 5 seconds to give that quarterback a chance to do his reads, 1, 2, 3, throw the ball away. Hand the ball off. Give them 5 seconds. They'll be able to play competitively.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they're going to go out and go 9-0,
Mm-hmm.
but they will be able to at least be competitive. And those 5 guys we mentioned, Liam Fleming, Gage Orzel, Caden Scott, and Javian Johnson, who's also their kickoff and punt returner, they're one injury away from disaster.
And that's what it is. The same thing in Pontiac. Same thing situation there.
Yeah.
And there's something to say, too, about being able to hold on to the football offensively. It keeps the other team's offense, which may be able to best your defense off the field. It limits the opportunity for them to create a gap in the scoring matchup throughout the game, which keeps you in the game. So, like Doug said, you can give your quarterback 5 seconds to go through a progression. Maybe he gets his number one read. Maybe you get 10, 15 yards out of a play or a big bomb pass down the field. Or maybe you just have check down after check down after check down. That still gets you something. You get 3-4 yards per carry for a running back, you're going to be happy with that performance. If your quarterback's getting limited time, but he and the receivers are getting a couple of yards per rep, that's going to put you in a much better position to be able to get the defense off kilter, get their linebackers out of the box, move the safeties outside to the perimeter of the field more, and allow you to set up a run game too. That versatility can come into play just from having a few seconds for your quarterback to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, make a decision, and it's only going to make that quarterback get better as the season goes on.
And that's what they need when you look at it. Let's look now at Berkeley. I mean, like, Berkeley, they had Casey Humes, their coach, former Berkeley alum, transition year. You always look at year 1 to year 2 being like that transition year. Cece, I'm going to start with you here. What's your thoughts on the Berkeley Bears?
I got a feeling 2-7 last year was an anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
They are not a 2-7 football team. Their strength is depth at skilled positions. Well, that didn't just happen this year.
Mm-hmm.
They had depth at skilled positions last year.
Yeah.
They just couldn't capitalize.
No.
And, looking at their schedule.
I watched that Northwest game last year, and it was just, they couldn't capitalize.
Yeah. And so this year, those guys are better. They're a year older. They're a year smarter. And what they had coming up, that's the question mark. How are their young guys going to do? Looking at their schedule, I'm saying a 4-5 season for them.
What do you think, Tyler?
I think that's a pretty good outlook for a team like Berkeley. And looking at their notes, too, not only, of course, they're returning skill players, I even look at their question marks, and I look at those and I say, are they really going to be question marks or weaknesses, however you want to put it, in this season? Coach Humes marked down what he's concerned about: mental toughness and focus, staying within ourselves, not allowing the highs and lows of the game to get us off kilter, and staying focused on the current assignment. You have that level of senior leadership returning. They had a season last year where they were third in their league. They were competitive at times. Now they're coming in, they're hungry, they want to finish strong, they want to take Berkeley to that next step. They've been through those highs and lows. They're not going to affect them as much. So I think the focus will be a lot better. That mental toughness is already there from the senior leadership. That can be passed down. That can be through mentorship. And that puts you in a way better position coming into this season if you're the Berkeley Bears to make some noise in the OAA Gold, which is still a league that's up for grabs every year.
And I'm sorry, Coach Humes, but if you're questioning your team's mental toughness and focus, you better look in the mirror.
Yep.
Because it doesn't come from them. It comes from you as the head coach.
Mm-hmm. That'd be very interesting to see how Berkeley does this year. They got a tough one. They got to play at Jackson Northwest. They're non-conference, brutal.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. You got to go out there to Jackson. So that'd be interesting to see. Let's now go from Berkeley to Avondale. We talked earlier about this with Avondale. Tyler, what's your thought process on Coach Carlisle's team? Of course, coming from the Thumb area. Of course, I'm a Thumb guy myself. So talk about what Coach Carlisle brings to this Yellow Jacket team.
Well, what he brings is a different perspective on playing the game of football. Football is a lot different in each region of the state. It means something different. The style of play is often different. What it means to the individual players in terms of their opportunities during and after their high school career is different. So a new perspective coming into Oakland County can bring some fresh new ideas and maybe something that his competition isn't quite prepared for. That being said, you're not returning starters on the offensive side coming off an 8-4 year in 2024. Your JV team last year's coming off of a rough year at 2-7, and you put in there for your leading returners, literally all graduated last year. So you look at last season, you look at where they're at, you look at a new coach coming in. It's a lot like Bloomfield Hills High School. They're starting from zero, and they're going to be rebuilding that program from the ground up. I don't expect 8-4 to be on the docket for the Yellow Jackets in 2025, but I also don't expect it to be a fall from grace to where they aren't going to pick up some wins or have some impressive outings.
I got some serious warning signs here when I talked to Coach Carlisle. The 21-41. When he was at Imlay City and Vassar, those are some warning signs for me when I look at what this program. Now, it's going to help him. He's got athletes. That's clear. But I'm a little concerned here. Coach, you step in.
Listening to him during your podcast. Yeah, he's, number one, he's got to put his message out before those players, and they got to buy in right off the bat because they're my dark horse in the gold.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing, he started right off the bat, and he was saying, we got to go to Cedar Springs. We got to go to Carlton Airport. You know what? Get your 11 against my 11. I'll play you on runway 29 at Metro Airport. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care where you have to go. You take your team and go play their team.
And that's going to be interesting. And then let's talk about our favorite in the division. I know the coaches poll said that they are favored to win this division. Tyler, obviously they should be one of your favorites in the gold. The Ferndale Eagles. They lost a lot of experience last year, but the coaches said they are the favorites. So I'm going to start reading this conversation.
Yeah, the coaches are looking at you with some intimidation factor to it. That is saying something. They know these kids. They've studied these kids. They're ready to go and compete. And Donovan Jackson coming in, it's a changing of the guard there from the coaching position. But they're coming off a 6-4 season. This has been a team that in past years has shown some signs of promise. They've shown some serious growth in that program. So this could be a season where Ferndale could jump out and take over the gold. As we've said, that it's a division in the OAA that is sort of up for grabs. It's just really a matter of where the other teams come off of their jump. What kind of momentum does their competition have? I think unlike other divisions in the OAA, the gold's really going to be about who has that strong start and maintains the momentum without slipping up late in the season.
Cece?
Looking at their schedule, it's their year. They've got the schedule, a very favorable schedule.
Not those final 3 weeks.
Harper Woods, that could be a challenge.
Rouge got a new coach.
Yeah, but I think that they're going to come close to playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to be in D2 for playoffs.
Yeah. Not saying they're going to go far, but will they have the wins to make the playoffs? Because let's face it, none of these teams are going to jump out and say they're an 8-1, 7-2 team.
No.
Now they've got too much rebuilding to do. It's not so much their in-conference schedule, but their out-of-conference schedules are going to be the one to see if they succeed or they don't.
And that's going to be interesting to see. You guys think the coaches got it right with the projections?
Yeah, pretty much.
What about you, Tyler?
I think the coaches are notoriously in the OAA pretty close to on the money year in and year out. It really takes some sort of a drastic change or a big surprise within the league, like what happened in the Red last year with it being so darn close in those last couple of weeks and coming literally down to the final game for there to be big surprises.
The only thing I did when I looked at this is I flipped Royal Oak and Pontiac.
Yeah, but I look at it here, and I'm flipping Berkeley and Avondale. I think that the schedule for Avondale's, the going to the west side, going to the east, going down south. I just think it might be too much, but you never know. So we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. All right, now let's go from the gold. Let's go to the blue here. Let's start off, Tyler. We're gonna start off with the your alma mater, the Bloomfield Hills Blackhawks. New coach and Scott Merchant taking over. When you look at Bloomfield Hills, he's got a lot to look at, especially at the quarterback position with them. They got a quarterback coming back, but there's some big-time question marks in Bloomfield Hills.
And there have been for many, many years since the merger of Lasser and Andover, and even beyond that. The first couple of years, you saw sort of a jump there. They had some feast and some famine, but of late it's been kind of a return to what I was really familiar with in my Andover days, even as far as 12 years ago in that final year. It's never going to be as bad as rock bottom. Rock bottom is you run out of players. That happened in my senior year. So it's not going to be quite that bad, but you're starting from the bottom up. And if there's ever going to be someone to come into your program and help you build from the ground up and build a rock solid program in a place where you can do that, and you have done that in the past, it's a guy like Scott Merchant. Like you said, not having a quarterback, not having a lot of players coming back that are going to be immediate impact players in a way that's going to move you far beyond your competition, that's a little bit of a question mark. But he said it himself in his 2025 outlook. What's going to be a big factor in this first season? How quickly can we pick up the new system and come together as a team? That's always a huge factor in it, because you have to have chemistry. You have to be able to communicate with the other 10 guys on the field and do your best to execute. Whether you're going to be a 1-8 team again like you were a season ago, pick up an additional win, or end up surprising someone in the blue. I think with his coaching experience, with his winning coaching experience, his experience not only as an assistant, certainly as a head coach, also at the collegiate level, and seeing how to get players to build their skill sets over the course of time, I think Scott Merchant's going to at least get off to a strong start with Bloomfield Hills. I wouldn't be surprised if they pick up a few wins.
I look at their self-admitted question marks going into this season. They have quarterback, wide receiver. When those are two of your biggest self-admitted problems going into the season, it's going to be a long season, which means that these next 2 or 3 weeks, when the pads come on, everybody looks good in shells. Mm-hmm. The quarterback can throw it all over the place because nobody's going to hit it.
Touching him.
Yeah. So now the pads come on. Now you see what you've got at quarterback. You see what you've got at wide receiver. And if those question marks are still there 3 weeks from today,
they're in trouble.
You're going to have a long season.
And you look at Bloomfield Hills. I mean, people ask is, and I look at my with Bloomfield Hills. I mean, I talked to Coach Merchant on my podcast. He does have a quarterback, but he played some last year, but he really struggled. And I watched that Seaholm game, and he really struggled. I mean, so he's got a lot to prove this year. So Bloomfield Hills, to me, it'll be interesting to see what they have, but we'll see what happens. Now, a team that I think could have a really long year is the Troy Colts. And the reason why I say that is this has been a program that really has been on the precipice of making the playoffs, had lost the last 2 years in week 9, lost 2 years ago to Frazier on a last-second play, and then last year they got steamrolled on North Farmington's homecoming. So when you look at Troy this year, what do they got?
Experience.
Not a lot,
but they do have some 3-year varsity players. They're the ones for the team itself that have to step up and lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're in key positions too.
Yeah.
They're offensive tackles. They're their center. That's huge. They have a tackle in the center where seniors coming back on the offensive side. Defensively, your secondary is looking good, and you got an edge rusher coming back with the senior experience. But losing 9 players from your starting lineup on the offensive side, losing 7 of those guys on defense, that hurts, especially when you have a JV team that a year ago left a lot to be desired themselves also. So it's going to be a long year for Troy. Coming back to this.
Yeah, it is.
I agree with Doug. I agree. Those seniors, how they lift up their teammates, is going to have a huge impact on how rough can it get for the Colts.
It's going to be rough for them. I mean, you really look at it, it's going to be really, really rough. Let's go look at the school down the road, Troy Athens. This is a team I'm very curious to see because when I look at Athens, when I talked to Coach Cook, he was very optimistic about this team. Excited about Nathan Piggott, all the returners. CC, of course, your play-by-play guy, Coach Frisching's the announcer there. What's your outlook on Troy Athens?
You know what? Troy Athens and Troy, you could have them swap jerseys and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them. I think that this year Troy Athens has a little more experience. All right. Defensively, I think they're going to give up more points than they score.
Ooh.
Simply until that defense gets their feet underneath them.
Mm-hmm.
They start off with Seaholm.
Veer?
So, well, I looked the first 5 weeks after Pontiac, after Oak Park, and after Farmington, after the halfway point in the schedule. If they're at the 500 mark, just above, just below, they should be able to make this a successful season.
Tyler?
Yeah, that's really going to be the test. How do you open the season? You're going to get punched in the mouth with a team like Seaholm. Whether you're on a good year or a bad year, whichever the result's going to be, whatever you find out this year is going to be, that's always quite the opening test. But then you got a little bit of a step back, so to speak, in your schedule, going to Pontiac against another team that's going to have a little bit of a back-and-forth experience in 2025. And Oak Park, another team like yours, that's trying to emerge in the middle pack of the OAA Blues. So you can bounce back and you can get your momentum. If they can do that in weeks 2, 3, and 4, they could be a team that climbs the ranks by the end of the season because of that experience, because of that noted work ethic being a huge plus for the coaching staff. But those first few weeks, I totally agree. That's going to be where we really see what this outlook looks like for the Red Hawks.
Yeah, and I think that too. But they got experience. I mean, they get Piggott's there. I think Anthony Dunlap at quarterback, big deal there for them. They're changing offenses, going to more of a spread look, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see. They're getting out of the wing T, which is going to help them. But you're right, CC. The defense has got to be the key for them. If that defense doesn't shore up, they're in deep trouble.
They were 3-6 last year.
Yep.
If they come out of 2025 at 4-5 and possibly 5-4, hey, consider it a successful season because you're still building. Their JV team last year was 4-5, so get that program building. Coach Cook's in his 4th year there. It's time that he's got his mark on this team.
Yep, now he does. Let's look at a team that really has his mark on his team, and this could be one of my favorites, and that's the Knights of Oak Park. Oak Park, when I look at this team, they got a bunch of 3-year starters. They got their quarterback back. They got a running back back. They got a lot of proven talent. They have one of the best coaches in the game with Greg Carter. So, Tyler, I'm going to start with you on your thoughts on Oak Park.
In past years, not last season, but in the years 2, 3, 4 years before that, I had always looked at the Southfield A&T Warriors as being the sleeping giants across all the divisions of the OAA. I'm looking at Oak Park as one of those kinds of teams in 2025 because of their coaching, because of their experience, and because they've been there before. And this team knows that. The coaching staff knows how to build to that. They're one of those teams that if they can figure out a couple elements of their game, they can be in a strong position. And they already have the personnel to make that jump in 2025, that kind of experience. They lost 3 starters on the offense. They lost 4 starters on the defense. Not something we've been saying a lot so far in this podcast today. So they're going to have a pretty damn good chance when you have that kind of personnel coming back to your team in 2025. Plus, overall speed on offense and in defense. In the OAA, if you've got speed, you've got that great equalizer with you that can go up against any team across divisions in the OAA and any team out of conference and help you stay competitive, especially if you catch them on an off night.
I'm looking at week 4.
Yeah.
Oak Park at Seaholm.
Absolutely.
If they can come out of that game, if not with a win, but with a close loss, that is going to be a confidence builder. And you know I'm a great Coach Carter fan. I've known him since his days at St. Martin de Porres, and always been a class act, always been a good football coach. And I've always said when he's had rough times, he didn't forget how to coach football. Right? So, and there have been a multitude of reasons why they've struggled. They've had external problems on the school campus, and he's had injuries. Now, he's still a good football coach, and I'm looking to see how they come out of the Seaholm game.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see, obviously. Let's talk Seaholm. Let's talk Coach DeWald. Talk that veer. I mean, like, you look at, of course, Tyler, you know Coach Jim DeWald very well from your Andover days. And talk about what, Seaholm's outlook is this year. They got the quarterback coming back. I know I've had Coach DeWald on my podcast many times. And talk about what you're looking at with Seaholm.
Bringing back Patrick Hughes is going to be a big one. We've talked all day so far about you got to have that quarterback. If your offensive line's a little bit lacking, but just about there, your quarterback's a big difference maker. It can go the other way as well. But you look at their leading returnees. Patrick Hughes, of course, their quarterback, their senior. They got some skill position guys coming back. They've got an anchor on the offensive line in Max Kruger, and you said it, Jim DeWald. That's the guy. 14 years at Seaholm. He's seen great days. He's seen days in the middle of the road. 7-3 record last year. They're not returning a lot of players, but with that kind of experience in recent years, with the playoff atmosphere that's there, those players will pick it up from their varsity counterparts, from their JV guys that jump up to the varsity roster. By the way, that JV team only lost 1 game a year ago. So
yeah, because he runs the mirror.
Players, but they're bringing up a whole lot of talent that knows how to win football games. Look, Seaholm may have been second in that coaches poll behind North Farmington in the blue. Nobody's going to be surprised if they get out of the blue as champions this season.
That's what I've got. I flip-flopped my rankings. I've got Seaholm as number 1 in the blue, and they are my dark horse in the blue division. You've got to, he's excited about his quarterback. A quarterback in the veer gets to hand the ball off 45 times. If he
doesn't have to throw it a lot.
Yeah, if he throws it 3 times a game, that's a lot. So, I think ball control is paramount for them. Their offense has to control time of possession and just hope their defense just holds on enough to get the offensive ball back.
And then, so it'll be very interesting this year. I'm curious to see how they do, especially how those players mesh. Let's talk about both Farmington schools. Of course, last year in the OAA. Let's start off with Farmington High. First, obviously they lost a lot. They're gonna have a new quarterback this year. What's your thoughts on Farmington? I'm gonna start with Tyler here.
Farmington's another one of those teams that's returning enough players that you would think would be able to make a decent jump, or at the very least, most likely, I would say, maintain the ground that they had. Maybe up or down one loss going into the playoff season. Their strengths are in the skill positions, but they're not very deep. That can cause you some issues, like we talked about earlier on. You're 1 injury, 2 injuries away from having a very different outlook. So how much does last season's finish, the playoff win, that experience, the winning year, come over to 2025 for those guys that didn't get a lot of first-team reps or didn't get a lot of in-game action at the varsity level, but we're observing, we're taking notes, we're studying the film, and have worked hard in the offseason. That's where this all comes into play, and especially comes into play if you have your number called, because someone else has to come off the field.
They should be coming into this week sky high.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, during the off-season workouts, they know, how to put in the work. They know they have to put in the work. They saw the results for putting in the work, and they should be coming into this week sky high. And looking at their schedule, I see them making the playoffs.
They do got a shot in their last year in the OAA.
Yeah. So, no, I'm high on them.
And then let's talk their arch rival, North Farmington. Tyler, you and I talked about North Farmington in our interview with Civic Center TV. I compared North Farmington to West Bloomfield. They're almost the same exact team.
Yeah, they're very similar. They've got talent, but what they don't necessarily have from the up-and-coming talent is the in-game experience against bigger competition, more skilled, more experienced competition. So those younger guys that come into those positions and fill those big shoes from seniors past from 2024, those are going to be the difference makers. That being said, they've got some good winning experience from guys coming up. JV team was 6-3 a year ago. They got guys they can rely on, only losing 5 starters apiece on offense and on defense. And they got an experienced coach as well, John Hurstein, in his 7th year at North Farmington, leading the pack over there. They're going to be able to answer the call when strategy comes into play, when personalities come into play, and you need to make some small adjustments to answer for an issue that pops up in the game, a discipline issue, a chemistry issue, something you can call a timeout, get your guys together in a huddle, talk it through as a coach, and then have those guys be able to have the experience around them to go back out there and make those adjustments. I think North Farmington will be all right.
And then obviously moving Terrence James back to wide receiver, that's a big deal. So CC, obviously, talk about what your thoughts are on North Farmington.
It's real nice that they say, boy, we've worked hard during the offseason.
Yeah, everybody else has.
Hopefully everybody's working hard.
Everybody else has.
But they have the depth. They have the playoff experience. Their JV team had a winning record last year. This is a year, and all I could think of with North Farmington is they got to go out and prove that they're for real, because there's too many dogs going to be nipping at their heels on the way up.
If Terrence James moves to quarterback, that's a big warning sign right there. That's my biggest concern when I look at North Farmington this year. So that my thoughts in the blue, you know what I mean? It's going to be interesting. It's a pick'em league. I look at that division. It's going to be really interesting to see. So we'll see what happens in that division. Now let's go to the white now. This is a division where, last year, Rose won the division. I still got to get that St. Mary's thing out my head. If you want to watch that November podcast, it'll be up on the ONTB website. But what's your guys' outlook? Let's start with A&T first. Let's start with A&T, because when I looked at A&T during media day, he said that, Coach Keith McKenzie said that they were going to be better. CC, you weren't sold on that.
No, they were 2-7. They come back this year. I put down, this is rebuild year 2.
Mm-hmm.
And when you had what they had, and the team and the success that they had, and all of a sudden that all goes away. But you know what? You lost a head coach and you lost a quarterback.
And he lost almost everybody.
Yeah, and you had a lot of turnover. But you know what? That should have been building down in the lower levels for the past 4 years to get those kids up to the level to come into the varsity and keep the program going. Not have the dramatic fall off that we saw last year.
And they've had a fell off.
Yeah.
Tyler, what's your thoughts with A&T when you look at this team?
I agree. It's going to be another rough year for them. It is rebuild year 2. I do believe when you lose the kind of talent they lost after the championship, you're starting from a big step back. Was it a step back to 2 wins? Not really what you would be hoping for if you're a Warriors fan coming off a Division I state championship, moving off into Division II, now coming in to this season, second year under Keith McKenzie. They're returning a lot of players. They're returning some players with that championship level experience in Kenny Brooks, Caleb Lane, Aiden Redding, all who were around in the days of the state championship a couple of years ago. But, last year he came in, Coach McKenzie, and said, yeah, we're starting from scratch. It's a rebuild. We got to build this program back up. This year came in seemingly a little more confident in his team, knowing what he had a year ago, but it's still the second year of a basically brand new team that came into Southfield A&T. I don't expect a big jump from them. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they have a similar record, maybe another win. I'd be pleasantly surprised if they came out the season with 4 victories. I think
the schedule though is interesting. They got to play East Kentwood. They got to play Low. I mean, those are.
You're not going to have an easy ride.
No.
When you go out of your league and you go and you play against West Bloomfield, when you go out of your league, out of your conference, and play against a program like Chippewa Valley, when you're opening the season against teams that have been in the mix before, like East Kentwood, and week 4 going and having Lowell come in to Southfield for a ball game, you're challenging your team. That's a good thing for a program that's rebuilding under Keith McKenzie to establish the culture. Sometimes your football program needs a punch in the mouth a few times to build the toughness, to build those calluses, and to get your program a little amped up to keep growing over the years.
And same thing. He says, Coach says one of his question mark entering the season is his offense.
Yeah.
And right now, looking at their schedule, which is not an easy schedule, they're going to be another 2-7 or maybe a 1-18.
Looks more and more like it when you look at it. Let's look at a team let's look at last year's league champion, Groves. I mean, obviously, it's a team that lost a lot of talent a year ago. When I look at Groves this year, I think there's a lot of question marks with this team, losing all that senior talent a year ago. So, but they do have Coach Flaherty. Tyler, what's your thoughts on Groves?
Yeah, definitely a fall off in talent. They got a bit of a quarterback competition coming in there that they'll have. But on the offensive line, a big plus having Avery Gatch back this season.
Wait, I thought Gatch graduated.
No, he did. Never mind, he did. He graduated. My apologies. Having players on your team that have played in the trenches on the varsity squad in past years as part of your key returners is really important. Coming off a season where you had an impact player at the level of Avery Gatch. So Groves is going to have a bit of a question mark in whether or not they're able to step up in 2025 and have those next guys up have that same level of impact. That's a big ask for a team that lost one game last year, and that game was the semifinal.
Their seniors, the seniors were around during last year's run.
Mm-hmm.
They were juniors.
Yeah.
Hopefully they weren't sitting there just talking around the water bucket while this was going on, that they were looking, they were learning with the team that they had. Those guys should have gotten a lot of playing time.
Well, they had blowout games.
Yeah, they had blowouts. They should have been playing in the third and fourth quarters.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe that team is going to fall off the cliff just because they lost a lot of seniors.
It could. I mean, you don't know that. You know what I mean? So
We don't know.
With a team coached by Brendan Flaherty, I'd be incredibly surprised.
Yeah, that would be.
Exactly. They have a competitive schedule.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Will they go 12-1?
No.
I don't expect that, but I expect them to make the playoffs.
We'll see.
I expect them to be competitive, and I expect them to challenge my pick for division champion right down to the wire.
It'll be interesting to see. Now let's talk about a team that I think is going to be really improved, and that's the Rochester Falcons. Rochester last year, they had a young quarterback in Matt Dykey. You look at this team, and I talked to Coach Vernon on my podcast, and he was excited about this team. I'm going to start with CC here. What's your thoughts on Rochester?
They're my dark horse.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is this going to be their year? Can they challenge Harper Woods? Can they challenge Groves? Can they challenge and improve Stony Creek? All right. We always talked about the red division being a dogfight. You're going to see one in the white this year because these guys are going to be so busy beating each other that by the time week 9 and week 10 comes, they're going to be battle tested. And I think Rochester's going to be in the mix. And I couldn't be happier for Coach Vernon. He's been there a long time, and he deserves everything that he'll get out of this year.
Tyler, what about you?
Yeah, I think they're in a position to make a big jump. They're returning critical players coming into 2025. Having their quarterback back, even though he's on the younger side, he's got the experience. Having a couple of skill guys around him that he can help make plays on the offensive side, a couple of guys in the trenches. That's going to be a big factor. And when you're marking senior leadership as being a plus, that means you're confident in those players coming back to help build everybody up and make a big impact in 2025. The first 4 weeks are going to be where we really see where the team's made of. And in terms of a dogfight in the OAA White, they're going to be hardened by the time that they're getting into the thick of league play after the first few weeks. They're going to all have some experience playing against tough competition in and outside of their division. And looking at Rochester in particular, those first 4 weeks, 2 on the road. Fraser's never an easier environment. Rochester Adams is always going to be a tough
1996.
Exactly. And then Lake Orion, even in week 3, going up a division and playing against a team that's coming off of a decent season.
That's the Falcon Frenzy game, too.
Yeah, exactly. So, those first 4 weeks are going to be huge for Rochester, but they got the coaching experience. They got the critical experience in key positions coming back. Coach Vernon did say inexperience on the offensive line is something he's looking at as being a bit of a question mark, but considering we got 2 upperclassmen O-linemen that are going to be leading that 5, that inexperience can be worked on in these practices these next few weeks, covering the gaps a little bit, filling in those needs skills-wise and just football IQ-wise to get ready for varsity competition. They can make a jump.
Yeah, I think Rochester's going to make a serious jump this year. Let's talk about their arch rival on Tinkin and Sheldon Road. The Fighting Powells, I call them, the Stony Creek Cougars. I'm going to start with CC here. Obviously, the job that Coach Powell did last year was just insane.
Yeah, I love Rick Powell to death. He did such a great job running the defense at Lake Orion. His dad is his offensive coordinator. And Mike Powell's been around football as long as I have, if not longer, because he's not as old as I am. But with Stony Creek, they're going to run the ball. They're going to pound you on the ground. And can that ground game translate into wins? They got a tough schedule, too.
Yep.
They got to play Lake Orion. They have to play Harper Woods. They have to play Adams, Groves. They finish,
with Ann Arbor Huron.
Yeah, with that should be
a win.
That should be a win, even though my 2 grandsons go there. That should be
a win. They got to go to Ann Arbor. That's not easy.
Yeah. So I think he's in year 2. He's still building his program. Next year is the year I want to see results out of them. They will be competitive. They will probably make the playoffs.
They will make it this year.
Yeah.
I'm guaranteeing that.
They may have an early exit, but they're going to get there, and that's huge.
Tyler?
Yeah, Stony Creek's in a good position also. You talk about Rochester having coaching experience be something that's going to be a positive for them with 17 years with Eric Vernon at that school. Rick Powell's experience at Lake Orion as a coordinator and him being in year 2 of this program, marking that players are starting to get the culture over at Stony Creek and buy into that. That's huge. If they're buying in, you got 7 players returning on offense, 5 returning on defense, 3 offensive linemen are returning. That's going to be a huge help for that offense, especially if they're going to run down their throats with not 1, not 2, but 3 guys that could be getting touches in the backfield. Stony Creek can make a big jump in 2025 and favorable schedule mostly. They got some challenges.
They got a tough schedule though.
Yeah, they do, but their tough games are still games they can be competitive in. And with this kind of a roster and with their coaching being as stout as it is, if you're in competitive games most of the season, you're on a course for the playoffs. And if you're winning those, you're going to have a really impressive season. Stony Creek is one of those teams that they're going to be in the mix regardless. I don't think there's a scenario where barring a bunch of injuries, where we don't see them having a really competitive season. They could come out of the OAA right emphatically.
They could, and I'm right there with you there on that one. Let's talk about Harper Woods. I mean, obviously, to me, this could be the new state champ in Division 4 because that is how good this team is. So when you look at the Pioneers, I'm going to go with CC first because, you look at this Pioneer team, they're loaded everywhere.
It is their division to lose. It is their state title to lose. They have everything you're looking for. They got a 4-year starter at quarterback. Dakota Grant is one of the top, I would say one of the top 5, if not one of the top 3 football players in the state of Michigan. They have a very favorable schedule. I'm looking at they have 2 what I would consider tough games against Clarkston week 2 and against Saline in week 7.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't see any reason why they can't run the table.
Yeah. What about you, Tyler?
After going 3-6 in 2022, they've gone on 2 consecutive deep playoff runs. They won the title coming off of that 3-6 season in 2024, going 11-3, and then last year they followed up that state championship win, going back to the semifinal in a tough game against Goodrich that they lost. That's 2 consecutive deep runs, and they're bringing back a bunch of experience at critical positions, including a quarterback, a lineman, and 3 very, very talented skill players in the receiving corps. Take into effect also their coaching being a big difference maker under Rod Oden. I agree. It's their division to lose. They're going to have a lot tougher competition than they've had in past couple of years. There are teams coming up that are ready to make a big jump, and they're looking at the big dogs at the top of the hill as their main target. The Harper Woods, they're locked and loaded. They're ready.
They are ready, and I expect them to make a big, big run this year. You guys ready to talk? Ready to talk about the greatest, toughest division in the state of Michigan?
Darn right.
All right. Let's do it. We're going to start off with last year's champs, the Oxford Wildcats. New coach and Trevor Potts taking over. They got a quarterback coming back. There's just so many questions on that line and also at the running positions. So, Cece, I'm going to start with you with the Cats.
Is the loss of Zach Line going to be that important to him? Probably. Trevor Potts stayed in, knows the system, kept the system in place, but they just lost so much.
Yeah.
Not only in the coach, they have their quarterback.
Yeah, Jack Hendricks.
Yeah, Jack Hendricks, 3rd year.
Yeah. And then you got Seth Tabert.
And
you got Seth Tabert. You got Brady Hasselbring. Yeah, you got some players there.
You got some players, but they lost so much.
Yes.
They are going to be very similar to Southfield last year.
Their schedule's brutal.
And their schedule is brutal. Exactly. They were 7-4 last year. Okay, but they're going to play Clarkston, Adams, Lake Orion in 3 consecutive weeks. They finish at Macomb, Dakota. They start the season in Heartland. That's
Home with Heartland.
Yeah, that's a tough schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's not saying WB, and WB's got to come up there.
Yeah, and I'm not looking for them to be a playoff team this year.
Ooh, Tyler, what's your thoughts?
It's tough to lose that many players, and even when we were bringing back really skilled guys, including a third-year starting quarterback, who I thought was the most underrated quarterback in the entire OAA in 2024, and Jack Hendricks. I look at that offensive line. I look at the skill positions for Oxford on the offensive side. We lost 4 of their 5 linemen. The only one returning, Liam Samborski, your left tackle. Luke Johnson was playing out of this world in 2024 at running back. He's not a Wildcat anymore. He's playing at Wayne State. You're returning Preston Wilder. He wasn't.
No, Wilder's not there. He left the program.
Yeah.
Liam Keene is a player to watch for too.
Yeah, another wrestler who plays football. That's always good at the running back position. But you've lost so much experience in the trenches on the offensive side. That's always going to be a tough recovery for any sort of team. Similar deal on the defensive side. Limited returning starters from last season. Even some limited returning guys from the second unit coming back, especially in the secondary. They got 3 guys marked down there on my depth chart from last year coming back from that secondary. That's going to be a plus on the defensive side, but losing that amount of talent, losing that amount of experience, and on top of that, having the schedule you're going to have in the OAA Red. I think this is a step back for Oxford, not necessarily a fall from grace, but one of those retreat and reload before years to come.
We'll see what happens with them. It'll be interesting to see. Now let's look at from Oxford. Let's go to Clarkston. I mean, you look at this Wolves team, they got a lot coming back. There's a reason why there's one of the favorites in the Red this year. But I got some concerns on that defense. I mean, last year when they played Adams outscored them 69-10 in both their meetings. So CC, we were talking about this earlier. Talk about what Clarkston brings in your mind.
As the Bowman brothers go, so will go Clarkston. Yeah, they have a good quarterback in Alex Rosenko, but the Bowman brothers, I keep thinking back to that Week 10 playoff game at Lake Orion.
That touchdown bothers me
and
still.
Lucas Bowman just owned the Lake Orion defense. And those two players are going to carry Clarkston this year. The quarterback's just got to turn and hand off.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's up, as you said, is that defense a question?
They are.
Yeah, because they gotta replace a lot in that defense. And again, Clarkston's always used a lot of two-way players.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
they're a deep team.
Yeah, weeks 1 and 2 in the hot days of late summer, early days of autumn, that can sap them. Late in the season, it can take a toll. Personally, I think it's their division to lose, but I got a lot of question marks with Clarkston,
especially on that
this
defense.
Year. Yeah.
What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, losing 6 players on defense always going to be a tough recovery. That being said, this has always been a team that it was mentioned earlier on. If you're going to be losing a bunch of players at the varsity level, you should be thinking about that a season ahead or 2 seasons ahead and making sure those guys at the JV level and the freshman level are ready to take those steps up and have that responsibility. That's something that the Clarkston Wolves program has. Their freshman program was a 1-loss team and a 1-tie team last season. Their JV team 8-1 in the 2024 campaign, and they're bringing back critical players on both sides of the ball with their returning experience. 3 offensive linemen, Buddy St. Amor, Zach Radlick, Hayden Flavin. That's huge on the offensive side, especially, as you said, CC, the Bowman brothers are going to be determining what happens offensively for Clarkston. all goes well, all Alex Washenko has to do is hand that ball off, and every now and then he'll make a good pass because that's what he does. He proved that a year ago, opening up the season 9 for 14 against Belleville. So Clarkston, yeah, it's their division to lose. They could fall back a few steps if their inexperience on the defensive side and their loss of 5 starters offensively plays a big factor. But they got the experience in the coaching staff. They got the winning experience in their down programs in JV and freshmen.
And they got a brutal schedule, too.
They'll be able to say they should be able to fill those gaps from last year.
Yeah, they got a brutal schedule, too. They got to play Belleville. They got to play Harper Woods. Then
they're playing the red, and everyone's got a brutal schedule.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let's look at Fear the Veer, which is Adams. Obviously, with Coach Petrino, we know Ryland Waters is back. But my biggest concern with Adams is the line up front. So talk about the what your outlook is with Adams. I'm gonna start with Tyler. I'm gonna start with you on Adams.
Yeah, offensive line is going to always be a huge factor for a team like Rochester Adams or any team in the OAA Red because of the kind of caliber of defenses you're going to be going up against year in and year out, and especially when you got Ryan Waters coming back after the way his 2024 came to an end. You want to make sure primarily you're protecting a quarterback of that caliber, and when you're returning just 4 players on the offensive side, that's something that's going to play a factor in Adams' success in 2025. They are replacing a big senior class. That's exactly what was marked as a weakness by Coach Petrino, but they are returning critical players on both sides of the ball. That being said, I look at the middle of their season, the weeks 3 through 5 in the Red Division. It's punch after punch. They go up against West Bloomfield. It's always a competitive game. It's always a competitive game. Lucky for them, in the middle of that, they'll have a chance to maybe reset, maybe get a breather against Oxford. But I always refer to Oxford as being the big blue trap game. They're always one of those programs that can come up and pop you in the middle of your season. And then they have to deal with Clarkston before moving on to the last 4 weeks of their season. They're going to be just as tough as the 5 before them. So Rochester Adams, you can never quite count them out. They have the key players and key positions that can be big enough playmakers to catapult them to another big year in the Red. But they lost a lot of leadership on that team from a season ago. That's the big question mark. How much does that affect the Highlanders?
You see?
When Ryland Waters broke his foot against Lake Orion last year, we looked at him on crutches on the sideline and thought, you know what, maybe Adams' season is done before it ever gets out gets off the ground. What do? They go 10-3.
Yeah, beat Anchor Bay, and then they went and had a playoff run, get the state semis, losing to Hudsonville.
Yeah. So, like last year, this year I think Coach Petrino's going to pull one out of his hat. Maybe a game he shouldn't win, he's going to find a way to pull it out. And I got Adams actually as my number 3 team. I flip-flopped them in West Bloomfield.
I'm really high on Adams this year, especially because of Ryland. I talked to Coach Petrino last week, and I called Ryland Waters Josh Allen. He's virtually very similar to that. I mean, so that'll be interesting to see how this goes. So we got 2 teams left, of course.
We didn't do West Bloomfield yet.
Yeah, we're going to do West Bloomfield. Yeah, this is Tyler's team. Yeah. This is Tyler's team. It's the Lakers, obviously. When you look at West Bloomfield, and I talked to you about the Lakers on Civic Center TV, they remind me a lot of North Farmington because of Jamal Shakespeare. So when you look at the Lakers, I've got some concerns up front with this team, particularly the depth on the lines. So Tyler, you're the first one here. So talk about the Lakers' outlook in your eyes.
They, much like a team like Rochester Adams, have lost a lot of talent, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, and in particular, critical skill position players. Bo Jackson, one of their quarterbacks, their main quarterback from a season ago, graduated. He's going to Pittsburgh. Josh Tate, main running back a season ago, had a breakout season in his senior year. He's out the door. Jay Mallows, who was the most underrated player on that team, a huge impact player in all three phases of the game, is out the door. You lost multiple linemen, both offensively and defensively. And production, Sammy. On the offensive side, 4 of their impact players in the skill positions made up a significant portion of their receiving yards, their rushing yards, and their overall touchdowns. Between Elijah Durham, Joshua Tate, Cam Flowers, and Jaden Allos, 81% of their receiving yards have graduated. 60% of their rushing yards have graduated, and 68% of their overall touchdowns. Here's the positive for the West Bloomfield Lakers. The guys that were down the depth chart last year that got some touches, got some impact late in the season, especially in those games where it was a little bit lopsided, where you had some injuries and you had to bring the next guys up or give them chances to get reps. I'm looking at Obi Duru. I'm looking at guys like Malcolm Gibson. So is Coach Hilbers to make a big step. I think Obi Duru is going to have a breakout year. I think he reminds me similarly of players in the past that have been able to come in and make an impact in the slot, make an impact in the backfield. He's also going to play a little bit in special teams as well in 2025. And then having those critical players on the offensive line that are returning. Jeremiah Benson, who's going to play a lot of tight end also this season.
I don't know why he's playing tight end.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. He looks way more athletic. I think he's got the skill to do it. I think you need that on the offensive line more than at the tight end position. But I think it's an interesting experiment. Whether or not it lasts the entire season, we'll see. The Lakers have the biggest question mark, Sammy and I, you talked about it. It's the quarterback position. Jamal Shakespeare is so versatile. He's so athletic. You want him in the backfield. You want him in the slot. You don't want him playing the quarterback position. You need a guy that can be there, be consistent, and can manage that offense. Jackson Carver's got the skill to do that, but the more he's not at the quarterback position and Jamal Shakespeare is there, the less the Lakers are going to be able to replace that production of the Big Four from 2024. So they got a lot of question marks. I think this is a team that I'm going to be optimistic about. They can have a big season, but I wouldn't be too surprised either if the youth on the offensive side causes them some problems and they have to rely on that defense to limit the points on the board.
I always remember the words of Bill Walsh. When a head coach from another team came up to him and said, "Coach, I got 2 starting quarterbacks." And Bill Walsh's line was, "No, you don't have one." So you've got Jackson Carter and Jamal Shakespeare. And like you said, split Jamal Shakespeare out, you've got another weapon. Can
they do it?
Can Jackson Carter get the ball to him?
Mm-hmm.
Obi Duru I think is going to have a breakout year this year if someone can get the ball to him.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you can run a 2-quarterback system all you want, but you should have one guy that takes the offense, puts it on his shoulder, and said, "This is my team."
Yep. And I think there's a lot of question marks with West Bloomfield. Obviously, Shakespeare, if he has to play quarterback, that is not a good sign. And Tyler, we talked about this at during your interview. And I think that's really what it is for West Bloomfield is if Shakespeare doesn't play quarterback, this team's going to be fine. If he does, that spells warning signs.
And, Coach Hilbers is in his 3rd year.
Yep.
The shock of losing Ron Bellamy should be over by now.
It should be.
And these players now have a full cycle of a roster turnover under Coach Hilbers. He should be putting his stamp on that team as of today.
Yep. Tyler?
I don't see that being much of an issue because of the consistency of the assistants. Yep. He still has Ken Rice. He still has Garrett Wynn, who's been there. Ryan Jones is in his 2nd year as a defensive coordinator. Down the list of assistants, you have guys who have been there and played before. Nick O'Shea has been there for years, helping out with the special teams. And they got listed Cornell Wheeler, who's coming off a stellar career also. So I don't think coaching or culture fall off from the Bellamy era is a problem for the Lakers. And I think on the positive side, going up against the kind of firepower you're going up against in the OAA Red and throughout, again, another highly competitive schedule facing teams like Roseville late in the season, facing a team like Dearborn Fordson early on. They have plenty of defensive prowess returning. Jeremiah Benson's back on the D-line, a guy that came in to the end of the regular season with 8 sacks going into the playoffs. Tank Pittman going to be back there. And I think that what's not being considered enough for the Lakers is the talent they have in the secondary with Jamal Shakespeare back.
Gillespie.
Having Khalid Robinson be back. Having even having Kyler Dickerson in that mix. He's going to step up this year. And Jamal Shakespeare and Will Espy are still there, 2 of the best in the secondary in all of the OAA. So that defense is going to be what leads the charge for the Lakers. And frankly, in past years, including the championship year, that's been the driving force.
Yep, and that'll be interesting to see with West Bloomfield. And then last but not least, we got Lake Orion. When you look at the Dragons this year, 2 quarterback system, rushing attack. CC, we're going to start with you on the Dragons.
I want to see who separates at quarterback. We saw this a number of years ago with Sean Charette when he was a freshman, came up, separated from the pack.
Yep.
Became a 4-year starter at quarterback. And I want to see who separates themselves. I look at this roster. Number one, I'm looking at names like Blackstock, Bambard, McKay, Sheffield. I coached their dads.
Mm-hmm.
You know, John Blackstock came to Lake Orion during my 5th year on staff. So I'm watching these and I'm thinking, boy, either I've been around too long or these guys are growing up too fast. Last year, I just don't think I don't know. I can't put my finger on what happened last year. It didn't help losing T.R. Hill for a few weeks.
Yep.
But Coach Bell is good at bringing out the best in young players. There's going to be a couple juniors step up this year and maybe a couple sophomores and really surprise. They've got a tough schedule.
Yep.
They really do. They end up at Saline. Of course, they've got the Clarkstons, Rochester Adams, Northville at Wayne State is going to be a big test for this team. This
team does remind me of the 05 team. I mean, the team I was on.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a lot of star players, but we did have, we had Joe Nowicki. We had a lot of players that were worksman-like mentality guys. And I think this team reminds me of that worksman-like mentality type of kids that we got. So,
I want to see this team establish themselves on offense because really they lost a lot of offense.
Yep.
Not to mention some of their defensive backfield. But you know what? It's a next man mentality. Mm-hmm. These guys are gone. You know what? They can't help our program. They can't help our program anymore. So you guys coming up are the ones that are going to have to carry this program.
Tyler?
Yeah, it's going to be who steps up because you've got the talent already there on both sides of the ball that's established and has the leadership experience, the in-game experience. You got a Division I commit in Ryan Rushlow at the tight end position. And we talked earlier on about getting those new quarterbacks, those young quarterbacks in, giving them time and giving them opportunities. You can go through your progressions and have a tight end that's 5-6 yards up the field and can make more out of that play because of his size, because of his toughness, because of his experience, like Ryan Rushlow. That's a big positive offensively for that team. On the defensive side, to have 2-year linebackers coming back, to have at least one key returning senior at both the first level and in the secondary coming back in Sheffield and Nearing. that's going to be big. And, we talk so much today about the impact of coaching. When you have someone with the experience of Chris Bell, who's been at Lake Orion as the head coach, as the AD, as the head coach again, seeing so much Dragon football, OAA football, high school football in Michigan over his 20-plus years at the helm at Lake Orion. He's seen everything. He's experienced everything. If there's something this team's experiencing that they need to get over to win football games, I'm pretty sure Chris Bell knows how to get them there, and he's got the leadership already in place. That'll take the guys the rest of the way. I think Lake Orion's going to be in a position where they're going to, at the worst, be middle of the road in the red, which gets you in the playoffs, and at best are going to be the surprise team.
And I think when you look at this division, and it wouldn't surprise me all 5 teams make the playoffs. It really wouldn't,
Right.
especially with the way this division is, how this is. It wouldn't surprise me second straight year. I've already got in my preview, my projections already. It would not surprise me all 5 teams make the playoffs this year.
They'll make the playoffs. Who do you think will make the best run?
Who do I think will make the best run? I would say if I had to pick a team that I would trust right now early, I would say, I don't trust Clarkson with their defense. I don't trust Clarkson with their defense. Lake Orion, they're a worksman-like team. West Bloomfield, I think they could come out of nowhere. It depends if they're away from CC, then I think they can make a run. Oxford, if Oxford goes north like they did with Davison Grand Blanc, I think Lake Orion's got a better chance to go against Davison Grand Blanc. I think they match up much better against them than Oxford does. And Adams, obviously, most likely having to go east. So if I had to pick a team that would have a deep run, I would say, God, my home side here showing. I would say the most dangerous is Lake Orion, but a playoff team that can have a deep run, I would say West Bloomfield. Tyler?
Yeah, I don't want to be a homer, but I think West Bloomfield, with that defensive experience coming back, could be that team that come playoff time when they've at least by that point gained composure on the offensive side and have had the experience and the chemistry of playing a long, tough regular season schedule. Could be that team that makes a deep run despite not necessarily winning the red. Right. I do think there's something to say about balance and coaching, both being something you possess for a team like Lake Orion. So I would put it between one of those 2 teams in green and white uniforms that could make that deeper playoff run. I think when you have the question mark of youth being potentially an issue helping you score points, I'd give the edge to Lake Orion, but not by much. West Bloomfield's got the kind of talent that can step up offensively to fill those gaps, and defensively, they're there. They're ready. They're going to be a tough team to beat. You're going to have to beat them in the trenches because it ain't happening. It ain't happening in the secondary.
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be what it is. CC, do you have a...
I would say if Lake Orion doesn't do it, and this might surprise you, I think Adams might have the best chance to make a run. Simply, as I said, Coach Petrito will pull one out. Yep. He's got a veteran squad, really.
Oh, it does.
Yep.
And I think they just run the type of offense that is built to get through the season and then make your run in the playoffs. If it's not Lake Orion, which being a Lake Orion guy, I'd love to see it again. I don't think Clarkston is going to maintain.
No.
The thing about the Bowman brothers is they're on film now.
Right.
And everybody knows that they're going to rely on the Bowman brothers, and you're going to see a lot of stacked defenses this year against Clarkston's ground game.
Yep. You agree there, Tyler, with Clarkson?
Yeah, I would agree on that too. Having the kind of film on a player to be able to answer them, especially a pair of players, that really helps you out, and especially when you have the experience and the football intelligence in the OAA Red, that's going to play a factor for the Wolves. But, I mean, when you're making predictions of playoff longevity in the OAA Red, it's kind of like my take on people, particularly pundits on the national level, that come out and say, this is my bold prediction.
Yep.
predictions are stupid because if it hits, you make yourself look like a genius, and if it doesn't, you have an excuse to say, oh, well, I said it was bold. That's exactly what happens in the red. This is a team that you had to put a chart of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon for scenarios at the end of the season to determine who is going to win the division. It can go anywhere. These teams are all well coached. They all have their own special mixture of talent. There are a few that probably are on paper better positioned, but I wouldn't be shocked with any of these teams making a deep.
You've looked at my previous prognostications at how people are going to finish. So you make that, if I make them and they come through, which doesn't happen very often, I look like a genius. Otherwise, I'm saying, oops.
Yep, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So
I'm always in the camp of never look at me as a genius, but be pleasantly surprised when I look like one.
Mm-hmm. All right, final thoughts, everybody, heading into the year. Tyler, I'll let you go first.
I love me some OAA football. There's always that level of competition that you just love seeing at the high school level. There's some purity to it. In the age where we're looking at the collegiate level and saying, what has happened to my beloved game? You don't have that problem in the OAA across all these divisions. They love their football. They appreciate the game. These teams are all working hard, win or lose. And by the time we get to the late portion of the season, there's always a juicy storyline to look into in every single matchup, and it's great theater on the gridiron.
Cece?
Hey, what's the old saying? Get your popcorn ready. One thing you're going to find with OAA football is a home stadium is going to be jammed every single night. Some of the teams the fans may not travel as well on the road, but I'll tell you what, you look at Dragon Stadium, because that's the one I'm more familiar with, and it is jammed from goalpost to goalpost on the home side on Friday night. Clarkston packs them in. Adams packs them in. Find a place that doesn't pack them in, and I don't know where the people are, because it's not only football players. I was a marching band parent. We're always there for the marching band and the football team, and it's all part of the Lake Orion community.
All right, I'd like to thank both of you guys on a special edition here of the podcast. Tyler, thank you for coming on. Coach C, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone, to sign off here. Take care, God bless, and we will all see you in a couple weeks. God bless all. Take care, Tyler.
Yeah, we too appreciate it. See ya.